This is Frank Assam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics and explore the topics of current interest that impact you, the viewer. Ron, first of all, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much, Frank.
As I understand, you lived in India for a while, perhaps about 9 to 10 to 12 years, as I understand. You have a long association with India. How do you know so much about India?
You know, my great privilege, Frank, was that I was able to go to India in 1992, just as the economic reforms were taking off. Dr. Manmohan Singh, you might remember,
he was the finance minister at that time.
He was the finance minister,
Yeah.
and P.V. Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. The country was just beginning the economic reform process, and I had the privilege from 1992 until 2004, for 12 straight years, to live on the ground in India, in Bangalore for 5 years, and then Delhi for 7 years, and really watch the whole economic reform process take off.
What did you exactly do in those two cities?
You know, I was involved at the front end in the electric power sector, and I was a promoter of a project, one of the 8 fast-track power projects called the Cogentrix Power Project. It's a project that came up finally on the coast of Karnataka in Mangalore. And then in Delhi, I was the country head for Unocal Corporation, which is the oil and gas company that has discovered a major gas discovery in Bibiana in Bangladesh. So I was looking after the Indian operations for Unocal.
That's the journey that you took, and you went to India.
And then I got a telephone call from Ambassador Frank Wisner, who was at that time.
Him. Yeah, he was the ambassador to India.
He was the vice chairman of AIG Corporation, and he said, "Ron, what are you doing now? What is exactly you doing in New Delhi?" And I said, "Sir, I'm looking after the Unocal operations, the oil and gas operations of Unocal." He said, "Ron, we have an opening at the U.S.-India Business Council. We believe the Prime Minister, now Dr. Manmohan Singh, is coming to Washington. We believe that President George W. Bush is going to be going to India. We need a businessman to be running the U.S.-India Business Council. Could you come home and do that?" And it was a perfect storm. It was an opportunity where the two great democracies were coming closer together, and to bring my business expertise and my love and my affection for India back to Washington, that was where it all began in 2004.
Hopefully it will not end soon.
Let us keep continuing this. I think the story is just beginning, and look at how bright the blue sky is.
I totally agree with that. I always look at the brighter horizon.
Absolutely.
Even when you endured the storm.
Yes.
President Obama was just, I say about 3 weeks ago at the State Department, and he was there with S.M. Krishna, who was also, who I understand is the External Affairs Minister of India. He was there to talk about U.S.-India dialogue. And they announced that he was going to go to India. What will be the big deliverables and the outcome that will come out of this visit to India?
You know, first of all, I think it's important to note that President Obama will be the 6th ever United States president to travel to India.
And that is trust from Kennedy or
that started with Eisenhower.
Eisenhower.
It went to Nixon. It then went to Jimmy Carter. It then went to William Jefferson Clinton. It then went to George W. Bush. And here we are now, President Barack Obama. It's amazing, the world's largest free market democracy, and we have only been to India with our president 5 times before. This will be the 6th ever visit. To me, the big deliverable will be that we are really pushing and pressing for the Indian public sector companies to be removed from the United States entities list. It's time now for America to truly put action behind action behind our words. When we talk about strategic partnership, we should be treating each other as partners, and that means let's now begin developing a foundation of trust. And trust means that we're not on each other's lists, that we're truly bonded and we're truly partners for the long future. So removal from the entities list, I think, is going to be the big deliverable for this visit.
And that will help India as well as the United States.
This is going to help us in space exploration. This is going to help us in dual-use technology collaboration. This is going to be helpful in every high technology element that we engage in. This is going to create an educational workforce that's going to shape the brain trust of the 21st century.
It'll be shape the future of the relationship between the two countries.
And these are the foundational issues that I think are going to be constructed during President Obama's trip to India. Very exciting.
No question about that. It seems that if you talk to the ordinary Indians in this country, especially the Indian Americans, and I had a privilege to go to India not too long ago, they said they were very happy with President Bush. They made a lot of progress. But somehow they seem to be reluctant in saying, well, we're not quite happy with President Obama. Why is that? Can you shed some light on this thing? Can you explain this?
You know, I think that that's a misperception, and I would like to correct that, because when you work every day with the United States government, as the U.S.-India Business Council does, we can see that there's an extraordinary enthusiasm in this administration for the India relationship. Number one, let's remember that Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister, was the first official state guest of the Obama administration
for the state dinner
back in November 2009. The other day you mentioned how President Obama stopped by at the S.M. Krishna State Department reception. A very unusual break of protocol where the President of the United States came by to demonstrate his respect. And then early in his first term, he's going to be going to India, the sixth ever president to do so. All this adds up to a tremendous enthusiasm for India, and therefore I believe that this perception is a misperception. Where did we get off to maybe some confusion? Number one, the world economy. The focus of our president has been on the global economy and job creation here in America. The oil spill disaster that's going on right now in the Gulf.
It's very unfortunate.
The Iraq-Afghanistan challenge. I mean, these are the focus areas of this administration. The healthcare legislation. And the beautiful thing about the Indian-U.S. relationship is that it's such a durable relationship at this point. The fact that it's not a problem should not give anyone the perception that we're not interested in it. And I believe that that's where the misperception is created. But in every piece of action, the Obama administration has demonstrated keen interest in India, and it's only going to be fortified when he goes there in November.
That'll make a lot of difference.
I think when you have a 48-year-old young president and 54% of the country of India is under the age of 25, and the president is a person of color, and he speaks so beautifully, his rhetoric is so beautiful.
Very eloquent.
He is going to resonate beautifully with India's demographic, its young, youthful demographic, and it's going to be an extraordinarily successful and historic visit.
I would tend to agree it will resonate well.
It will.
And I'm positive it will resonate well. We understand there has been a formation of CEO forum. What did they do? What's their contribution to the commercial type of relationship? And who are the members of this forum? And when did they meet? What exactly did they do?
This is the 12 most influential business leaders from India and the 12 most influential business leaders from America who are keen on advancing U.S.-India commercial ties. The chair on the Indian side is Mr. Ratan Tata. And on
Mr. Tata himself.
Mr. Tata himself. And joining him is Mukesh Ambani and Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw and Mr. Gopalakrishnan from Infosys. And you go down the list, it's an extremely impressive
list. This is the cream of the crop.
This is the 12 most successful business leaders from India.
So this is from India?
From the India. On the American side, it's Mr. David Coady from Honeywell Corporation.
Yes.
He's joined by Indra Nooyi of PepsiCo, Terry McGraw, the current chairman of the U.S.-India Business Council, and 9 other titans of American industry. These two groups will be developing recommendations to smoothen out any of the bumps in the road that are in the way of deeper commercial ties. And they will be recommending into both the Prime Minister and the President as to what issues can be improved so that we advance and deepen the commercial relationship. It's very important that all of our constituents, meaning all business leaders on both sides, feed into the CEO Forum. And USIBC is obviously intimately involved, given that every member of the U.S. side is also a member of the U.S.-India Business Council.
So that works both ways.
Again, this is a two-way street. This is a new mature relationship where Indian investment is matching American investment, where it's $20 billion trade going into India, $20 billion of trade going into America. How do we deepen that now? And let me give you a perspective. Two-way trade between U.S. and India is $40 billion. Two-way trade between the United States and China is $400 billion.
Which I never do understand.
We're 1/10 that of China. So we need to now really deepen the relationship commercially so that we build up this extraordinary commercial relationship between U.S. and India.
But the relationship between India and China is a mature relationship. It's a good relationship. They give us cheap and in some cases shoddy products. I don't mean to say that, but I will make that point. But they're very low tech. They're manufacturing kind of products. But the relationship and the trade relationship that we have between India and the United States are in terms of the high tech, in terms of information technology and other what you call the manufacturing sector as well as that. And so there's a little bit of difference here, but we do need to have a trade that allows India to at least get half the what we're doing with China.
Yes.
Is that what your goal is within 5 years?
Imagine it's the president's goal, and who am I to speak for the president of the United States? But he's trying to double global trade in the next 5 years.
Yes, he is.
India is a very important component of that, as is China for the United States. And in the end, you're absolutely right. India is buying high-end manufactured goods from the United States. $20 billion worth of Boeing aircraft, as an example. In the last 3 years, $20 billion of Boeing aircraft. Just think how many jobs that's creating out in Everett, Washington, and in Illinois, and in Kansas. So the bottom line is that we need to deepen that relationship because we are logical partners. We are both the world's largest free market democracies. We share common values against human trafficking, against terrorism, against drug trafficking. All the foundational issues are right, and now we need to expand the commercial relationship between our countries.
We have a shared interest.
We do, and we need to be sticking together. We are going to be friends for the long term as we look around the world. It's a dangerous place, and friends need to be sticking together.
So do you think the political tides would turn in a different direction when you have a new government in India?
You know, the thing is, if I look back in my own 12-year history living on the ground in India, I came there when it was a Congress government. Then there was
a BJP?
Then there was a 13-day BJP government, and then there was the Janata Dal for 10 months, and then there was I.K. Gujral for 11 months.
Yes.
And then it went BJP for the full term in Congress. In all of those different government configurations, there has been progressive interest in advancing the U.S.-India commercial relationship, number one. Number two, advancing the economic reform process. So I think the genie is out of the bottle. The economic reform process is well underway. Doesn't matter which government's in place. And frankly, the United States and India are the logical partners.
There's no question about that. What legislation are you hoping from the Indian side in the coming session of Parliament?
Well, when you look at the Indian infrastructure sector, needing $1.7 trillion of investment, we need to create a long-term debt market in India to mobilize the financial resources to fund that infrastructure build-out. So we'd like to see the insurance sector, the foreign direct investment cap raised from 26% to 49%. That's a very important opening, from 26 to 49%. That will bring in capital, and it will enable the creation of a long-term debt market in India that will help India fund its infrastructure sector. Number two, we'd love to see the Indian education sector open up for foreign investment. So the foreign education bill is another major priority. We think groups like Duke University and Wharton and Harvard and some of our best educational institutions to do tie-ups or executive programs with India will create an entire knowledge generation.
There is no
very
question
important.
about that.
So that needs to change. Those two laws are very critically important.
I'm hoping it will happen.
I'm hopeful that it will happen. I mean, we've got a visit of a president coming in November. That's an action-triggering event, and as we know that when you have big heads of state visiting one another countries, big things can happen.
Well, thank you very much for coming to my show. Thank you. Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That is our show. Until next time, this is Frank Islam, FI Investment Group, wishing you great